go, I promise. Hello and welcome. This is Crash Canon. I am Chris, the host, and I have a guest today. Actually, you know what? I didn't ask you this off stream, but what would you like me to call you? Because Convinced Catholicism is a long name.
Yeah, you can call me Christian. Yeah,
Christian.
that's
All right.
my real name. So, yeah.
So Christian, what do you do
Yeah.
on the YouTubes?
So if you haven't, so first of all, thank you so much for having me. I love Catholic content creation, and I'm glad to be a part of it. So what do I do, right? So I basically do uh, book reviews and kind of prayer tutorials, right? So kind of if you want to know what type of Catholic Bible you should get, what type of breviary you should be praying from, or what devotional book is best for you, you should check me out on YouTube for sure.
And for the record, he's convinced me to buy books. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe it's a financial
it might
endeavor
be
to
a
watch his
financial
channel.
burden, but you will gain graces from them.
Yeah, especially in your prayer life and everything else. So,
Absolutely.
how
Yeah.
did you get started with that? What led you? I mean, what I know there was like an absence of Catholic specific book reviews.
Yeah.
What led you to start a channel about Catholic books and devotionals and stuff?
Yeah. So a couple of things, right? So I myself am on this never-ending quest of finding the perfect Catholic book. And, I'm going to have to start selling off some of my books at this point because I just have bookshelf after bookshelf of Catholic, or I would just say lowercase o, Orthodox Christian books in general. And there was one book in particular. It was a New Testament, a pocket New Testament with the quote unquote Reims Dewey pronunciation or translation, excuse me. And I thought, wow, I don't know how many people know about this book. I never see, I live in New Jersey, which is a Catholic enclave. I went to Seton Hall, which is a fairly Catholic university, I would say. Um, I never saw anyone with this book, and I thought more people need to know about this. The publisher will, definitely gain more attention from it. And I did a review on it, and I didn't expect much traction, but I got some views on it,
Was
and I thought
was that your was it the Scepter publisher one, or was that the
Scepter
Pocket?
Publishing. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so was
right.
that Confraternity then, or was it the
Correct.
okay, the
Yeah,
Confraternity?
yeah. And I did also get a lot of influence from my biggest influence was probably Orthodox Review, who has made some great content. And also, and I don't know if you know him, Chris, but there's this, I think he's something of the Methodist persuasion, moving about manipulating objects.
Oh yes, I've watched a few
Yeah,
of his. Yeah, yeah.
he does a lot of kind of, I would say, mainline or liturgical Protestant type of
I'm
books. And
pretty sure he's High Church Anglican.
no,
Um,
I think he's
are you sure?
Church of the Nazarene, I think.
Really?
Yeah,
Because
I think so.
I thought I saw in his comment section somebody said that's Anglican, and he was like, "Yeah, that's what I am," or something.
Oh,
Maybe I'm misremembering.
maybe. I don't
Maybe I'm
know.
completely misremembering. But if
Yeah,
I'm wrong and he
yeah.
happens to watch this video, unlikely. But if he
Memo,
does,
if
he
you
can
watch this
absolutely
video,
correct.
please
Yeah.
tell us which one you are, or
Yeah, I'd love to know.
neither, you know. But
Oh, that's funny.
oh, we have a comment, don't we?
Yep,
Oh, just
that's
someone
Hallie.
saying,
Haley.
oh,
I
yeah,
guess I
she's a
don't know
fan
how to
of my
pronounce her
content.
name.
Sure, yeah. But but
She'll correct me, I hope. Anyway, she's a mod for the channel, so
oh, okay, cool.
so glad to see the man
Yeah,
behind the hands.
yeah.
Anyway, so you were saying you moving about manipulating objects. He's done a lot of Bible reviews,
He
and
has, yeah,
he'll get
yeah.
down to like measuring the text size with a little like measuring stick
Yeah,
and
I try.
telling you.
That's the thing. I tried. I don't go into that much of a, I guess, that much detail. Always try to get the width and the height and the
Yeah, yeah.
thickness of that. So yeah, so that's
I
where I
find
got.
that's more
Yeah,
important though, because like if I gotta hold it in my hands, I don't want it to be like a brick, you know.
yeah, and I do feel bad because a lot of people tell me, oh, ask me, oh, what's the font size? And I tell them honestly, to me, thanks be to God, it's not an issue because God has blessed me with 2020. So I mean, and I do feel bad for some of these people who may not necessarily have, you know, good vision and they need a larger print and whatever else, but maybe I should consider more what people are asking, but it's yeah, but no, but that's how, to get back to the original question, yeah, that's how I got started. Was I had a lot of books. The Scepter Publishing New Testament was something I hadn't seen before. I really liked it, wanted to get the word out, and influence from other content creators. Yeah.
Just real quick, it's funny that you mentioned people ask about font sizes, and I can tell you the reason is that most Catholic publishers, from what I can tell, up until like the last couple of years, did not advertise font point size.
Mm,
So if you go to like any older Catholic Bible or book, it'll just say like Catholic Comfort Print, and I'm like, what size is that? Because that tells me nothing. So anyway,
yeah.
my
Yeah.
own little complaint.
And you know, what am I supposed to say sometimes? You know, it's 11, but you know, 11 in Garamond or in Times New Roman might be very different,
Completely
but
different. Yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah. But I
The
try
other
to
thing
be
is like
helpful.
page thickness, right? People always ask about page thickness, and
Yeah,
it's like,
surprisingly not so much, but yeah, I mean, people typically prefer Bible thin paper,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it comes up from time to time for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
because you know that if you try to print your own Bible, you pretty much can't. Like it's finding a
No,
publisher.
yeah. They say, you know, it's funny that you say that. I did try to make my a prayer book, a personal one,
Yeah.
with, you know, just kind of like a Frankenstein devotional, like stuff from the Byzantine Rite, stuff from the, and I asked, oh, you know, can I get this on Bible paper? And they said it's so expensive, we're just not going
Hmm.
to do it. And I was like, okay, that's fine, and I moved on, you know. But
So
yeah,
how much do you know about printing?
relatively little, I would say. Yeah.
So generally speaking, ink and toner, like your standard printer you have at your house,
Yeah.
you can print on, I think the thinnest I've seen is 16-pound paper. And 16
Okay.
pound paper is still at least twice as thick as Bible paper.
Oh wow. Okay.
And the reason is because when you try to print Bible paper in a standard printer, they use heat, and Bible paper is so thin that heat destroys the
Right.
paper, and you end up with a mess. So you have
Yeah.
to use like was it offset printing and digital printing are the only things. I think even digital is a bit dicey.
Mm.
So like you're
Okay.
talking like full on press to do Bible printing.
Okay.
So the number of copies, they got to make plates for it and everything else. So you pretty much have to have high volume, which is why the KJV is always in print, and
Right. Yeah.
because it is such a high volume print. And then like Baronius has been great for the Catholics for who
Oh,
want the old
sure. I,
language.
you know, and kind of like a an evangelical Christian equivalent is Crossway. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
they're
They got the ESV, right?
I think they invented or copyrighted or one or the other. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Hmm.
All right. So once you got started,
Yeah.
did you reach out to publishers or did they reach out to you, or how does that all work?
Oh, yeah. So both have happened. One I will say is that for a good while, uh, 10 publications reached out to me and asked me, "Oh, do you want to review this book or that book?" And I did need to have some traction, right? And so I think maybe there's like three or four, maybe five books that Tan sent to me for free to review. And one of those was The Last Seven Words of Christ. One book I have yet to review, which is the something to the effect of like the children's ABCs of Christmas, I think, which I will review probably this Advent. There was another book. So yeah, publishers have reached out to me. One person who did reach out, and we kind of mentioned him before the show, was Greg, right? That's his name?
Derek?
Derek, excuse me,
Derek,
Greg.
yeah,
Yeah,
Derek.
that's who sent me a copy of the Latin Vulgate, and that was one of my most popular. There it is. Um,
It's a very
it's
nice
a
book.
it's a great uh, It's a great book. The facsimile on it is excellent, and that was one of my most popular videos. And then there was one time I tried to reach out, but I don't even remember who it was. They didn't get back to me, but there have been a few churchlatin.com. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Um, but I would say Tan and Church Latin were kind of the big well, Tan is huge in the Catholic
Yeah, they
publishing
are.
space, but
I think the owner of it has like more than 10 children, I believe.
oh
A lot
my.
of kids.
Well,
I'm pretty sure that owner of Tan is the one that has all the kids.
in order to help his family, please buy 10 books. But no, but they I gotta say they put out amazing work. They really resonate with I would
Like this
say
one was a Tan publication.
yes
I
it
really like
was.
that one.
Yeah, and the Little Office of Baltimore as well.
Yep.
They also made the manuals for Marian devotion or spiritual warfare or whatever else. I think I got a
Oh
couple of
yeah, they
those
got the
books.
spiritual warfare. That's a good
They
one too.
do.
Yeah. I always forget about that one.
Yeah, but for the most part, when it comes to reviewing books, it's out of pocket. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I have
So
no
whatever
problem
is
with.
on, if somebody wants to do something like that, start with what's on your shelf.
Yes. Yeah, I would say if you wanna review books, always start with what's on your shelf, build traction, and then the publishers will eventually get to you. I mean, I am by no means a big YouTuber. I have just under 5,000, and I get people reaching out to me, and people gift books to me, which thanks be to God for that as well. We're That's kind of the nice thing of being in a huge community of Catholics, is that people are generous, and you know it's wonderful. But yeah, but most of it is out of pocket. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
Mhm.
that makes sense because if
Mhm.
they're books you want to buy anyways, you might as well review them now that you got the channel.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I if they could uh it's not easy for any small publisher to give away anything for free. So,
Right.
for those of you who have, thank you so much. But yeah, I almost would prefer to buy out of pocket just to see what the real deal, because I'm not saying that any of these publishers are sneaky, but they're going to look for a maybe a slightly defective copy, but a very good one.
Yeah.
And if I want to buy out of pocket, they don't know who, they don't know that, oh yeah, Christian who lives in this part of the
Yeah. I
East
mean,
Coast is
they
convinced
might eventually
Catholicism.
figure it out,
They
but it might
might,
take a little
yeah,
while.
yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, having a channel that actually reviews the books that you want to read, because, like, for example, you may not know that a book is sewn binding until it shows up on your
Correct.
doorstep.
Yep.
You might not know that, oh well, the gilding on this particular book is flaking off on all the
Sure.
copies, or you might not know that the font is so tiny because on a picture on a website, like it says, oh yeah, it's 5 by, I don't know, 3,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't,
Mm-hmm.
like, until you physically hold it in your hands, you don't know whether that is going to be something you can read easily.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's one book that I was really disappointed in. I think Scepter publishes it. Scepter's a great publisher, by the way. I'm not knocking Scepter, but it's the Daily Bible, I think they call it, and it's
Oh
an
really?
RSV, and there was nothing about it that inclined or suggested daily about it. There was no sections. There was no, yeah, there wasn't anything
So
about it.
it was just called like a daily devotional
It
with
was just,
no.
yeah, it was just an RSV
Hmm.
with the typical, titles. We'll call it like, Jesus heals the paralytic. I don't even know if that's a real title but you know what I'm
Sure, sure.
talking about, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
And the bleed through was so bad, that I thought to myself, this is not, anything worthwhile. And the table of contents can only tell you so much.
Right.
So I always I like to think that I'm buying the book, so you may or may not have to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because there are some books that a Catholic may have had in their Amazon wish list, for months, and then I review it and they say, and I've gotten these comments, oh, I'm so glad you reviewed it. Now I know that I'll just stick with this, or now I
Yeah.
know I definitely will buy it. Yeah.
No, I
Mhm.
definitely, especially with, because I was gonna get a hardcover of the Church Latin Bible, and then when
Mhm.
they came out with the leather, I think it's, I don't know if it's, pretty sure it's a fake leather, but I could be wrong about that.
Mhm.
I'll double check and we'll find out for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't know if it was going to be like Baronius quality or like some of these other older Bibles I've got that fall apart.
Just
And
as good as
I was
Baronius, if
very
not better.
thankful. I was very thankful to find out that it was very good quality.
Yeah.
So, Derek, shout out to you. You
Yeah.
did a great job with it.
Mhm.
But that's a reason why your channel is so important, because with these more niche products in the Catholic space, who's reviewing it?
Yeah,
Because
it's true.
without a channel like yours, and people would just have no idea.
Yeah.
And so then the next question would be, actually, you know
Sure.
what? Other than that scepter one, I do remember you reviewing the, what was it? Is it Lancelot Andrews Press Mattens?
Mhm.
You were not too
Oh, yeah,
you were not too impressed with that,
I was really disappointed, and I love Lancelot Andrews. They're not Catholic, and I always
right?
give the same warning with my non-Catholic books, especially with Lancelot Andrews. Saint Charles the Martyr is not in the Roman canon.
Hmm.
Users' discretion is advised, but
Right.
everything in it is lowercase o Orthodox. Their Saint Dunstan's Plain Song Psalter, the Monastic Diurnal, both great works. They were printing a private devotion book for a while. The Mattens was just really disappointing. I mean, uh, it
Did you
still
have did you have
has the
experience with Mattens before you reviewed that?
uh, well, I had experience with some form of Mattens
Okay.
in the old whether it was Eastern or Western. I had some experience in Mattens, and it being a lengthy
Yeah.
prayer that really is just not for the lay, and even monastics don't really even do it anymore. But I just felt
They
that
don't do it at the hour that was traditionally
no, they
done.
usually do it probably at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Actually,
Uh,
a lot of them, because I've talked to a few, they do it. What is it called?
it might trail Compline immediately
It's,
afterward.
yeah.
Yeah,
What it's not called assuming. It's anticipate. They anticipate matins and
right.
do it before they go to bed, because
Correct.
that's the best time to do it. Honestly, it's right before
Yes, it
bed.
is.
If you're not getting up in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
Now, with
but
several of my newborns, I have gotten up in the middle of the night with a newborn, because
sure.
they're like not going to bed at 2 in the morning. It's like, all
Yeah.
right, time to do some matins, and I fell asleep inevitably in the middle of it. But I tried.
Yeah. I mean, lay people have no business doing matins, and no priest, no spiritual director would in their right mind recommend it. But the binding was it still has the bubble wrap printed onto
Oh
the
yeah, I
cover.
remember you saying that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and they
because that
usually
was
do
one I
such good work.
considered picking up, because I have the monastic diurnal
Yeah.
from was it Saint Farnborough Abbey.
Yep. Yep.
And I was like, oh, it would be cool to have an English matins, but
Yes.
I
But
haven't picked it up.
yeah, and yeah. That I'll leave it at that. Yeah. Hmm.
So then I guess the next question would be,
Sure.
what prayer book do you use devotionally, since you've reviewed so many of
Yeah.
them?
I kind of go through a rotation, and I actually made a YouTube change the name of it, but I still go by the old name, Community Post, but now they just call them posts.
Yeah.
Um, I said in a community post, oh, I struggle sticking to something for longer than like a month or two.
Hmm.
Right now, I would say that I teeter-totter between Christian prayer, which is not honestly not even my favorite form of the breviary, and Magnificat. If I can find that I am praying a hymn, at least one psalm, some scripture, the Our Father, and a canticle, I feel like I'm being connected with the Lord. Um, But I would say that probably my go-to is some form of the official Liturgy of the Hours, whether that's on my tablet looking through the Universalis app
Yeah.
or the physical Christian prayer. That's I would say when I am praying the hours, I would say that's like 8 or 9 times out of 10. If you're a betting person, what is convinced Catholicism praying from? It's liturgy. It's some length of the liturgy of the hours. Yeah.
And for people that are wondering, there is like a bunch of options for
Yeah. You
Catholics.
do
Like
not have to pay for Universalis like I do. You can go to the Laudate app. You can go to the
Dorate,
Divine
yep.
Office app. You can go to iBreviary.
And I've got like
iBreviary,
Brev Meum,
Brev Meum is another one. Yep.
iPieta, I think has some of them in there.
iPieta, I
I
find a little bit
think
clunky, and the UI/UX is
I don't
not
really use that
very
one.
good.
I've
Yeah.
occasionally opened it just to see how it's going, but I really don't use that one. I generally use Brev Meum or Universalis.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that those are both Brev Meum, especially if you want to pray from the traditional
Hmm.
office, is the way to go. Um, but yeah, the both, and I've recommended these apps, and I think I reviewed Universalis, I believe.
Did you really?
I think so.
That wouldn't have been one I would have wanted. 'Cause I
It didn't
mostly
get
look into
any
the books,
traction.
but
Yeah, I think when the thumbnail showed a tablet, I think a lot of people said, I don't need this because I understand people don't want to read on a screen. They want to have a physical page, right? So I
the
understand
screens
that.
are nice when you're, out and about and you need a
Yes.
portable office or whatever,
Yep.
traveling especially.
Yeah. And one of
But
the nice things too about Universalis is, and I don't even know how they do this, they have loaded it until Kingdom Come. I mean,
yeah,
I don't I guess maybe some brainiac did the math on all the dates of Easter and which ones repeat when and whatever, and it's just on some algorithm. But you don't need the internet to use Universalis, which to me the price is, I don't even remember what it is, but it's worth it. I think it might be like I don't know, like $10 US, but
it was when I got it. I think it was 10 at one
yeah.
point. Brev
Um,
Mayum is similar but not the same. You can download up to 7 days at
oh,
a
okay,
time. So like if
okay,
you're going on a week long, up to a week, you can get all of it downloaded.
that's cool. Yeah, yeah, no, Brev Mayhem's great. If you wanted to pray medieval uh
They
off
have
the
as
office.
far back. They have pretty. Actually, I'm gonna check this again
Yeah.
because they've got it pretty far back,
Oh
and it's
yeah.
got an English and Latin side by side thing.
Hmm.
It's pretty neat. Let me see. What's the oldest office they have in here? They have the Trent 1570. I don't know how good it is. I've never done it,
Yeah.
but they have it.
Yeah. And then they have a bunch from the 20th century and 19th century. Yeah, a bunch of stuff from that.
But yeah, so cool. So what you're saying is you generally do the liturgy of the hours, which is the most common if you're gonna try
Yeah.
and pray in a group setting too.
And that's the reason I do it because I think to myself, and a lot of people ask this in my comments, oh, and they're very, no offense to anyone here, and God bless you for it. I wish I was this scrupulous. People are very scrupulous and say, oh, I want to pray the correct one that is prescribed by the church. And I said, listen, I get that, but if you're praying from the monastic diurnal, the Roman breviary, or the liturgy of the hours, you are praying
An official
the
prayer of the
the
church.
official prayer of the church. It doesn't matter if it's the exact edition of liturgy of the hours. You're praying it, and so is someone else. You'd be surprised. Um, but for me, I feel you know this is what I would say probably 90% of priests in the world are praying is liturgy of the hours. Um, if I ever wanted to get ordained a deacon, which thy will be done on that, uh, that's what I would have to pray more likely than not. And then also my brother-in-law prays the liturgy of the hours, and so if I ever pray it with him, that's what I would pray, because that's just if you were to kind of take a bet as to what someone's praying, it's the liturgy of the hours.
Yeah, and the hard part is if you were to find somebody to pray the 62 office with,
Hmm.
you would have to have matching books. And
Yeah, because
that's
the English translation is not going to be the same. Yeah.
because I've got a set of the Collegeville breviaries from the 1963 Collegeville set.
Oh, yeah. That
Uh,
that's very desired by many people.
Sadly, though,
Yeah.
the couple people I tried to pray it with don't have the Pius the 12th Psalter, so it's like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, not really worth it.
Yeah.
That's when I have to pray by myself, pretty much.
Yeah, unfortunately, but
Liturgy of the
um
Hours, on the other hand, everybody I know that prays an office has that, so
yeah.
it's way easier if
Yeah.
you have that set for sure.
Yep.
Uh, okay, so we got through that part of it. I guess the next question would be, were you always Catholic? I think your website says you were, correct?
Yeah. So I think with a lot of people in any faith tradition, there's going to be ups and downs in it. Cradle Catholic, uh, I was blessed to be brought up by religious parents. I would say, funny enough, when I had a spiritual director, he said, "Oh, you know, is your mom the religious one?" I said, "Oh no, my dad." And he was shocked. He was floored. And I said, "Oh, what's the big deal?" And he goes, "Do you know how rare that is?" And I was like, "Not really." And he said, you know, he said this, and I don't mean this in an insincere way. He said, "Why do you think that the Jewish faith is as strong? There's not a lot of Jews in the world, but why do you think it's as strong as it is? Is because it's a religion led by fathers. And if you look at Pew Research, no pun intended, I mean the actual think tank Pew,
Right, right.
uh, if your father is religious, the chances of that the children of that person being religious is like astronomically high.
It is, yeah.
So I think that probably, the the socio not economic, but the socio setting for that set me up to be a religious person. And I would say that I was very much on fire with the faith when I was a teenager, when we were doing these kind of youth retreat kind of things. And it was very much, uh, and there's nothing wrong with Vatican II. I think it's very obvious I'm a Novus Ordo attendee or a, regularly, semi-regularly Novus Ordo. Very much the quote unquote spirit of Vatican II.
The
Very
culture that
much,
came out of it, right?
what's that?
The culture that came out
The
of it is that,
culture that came out of
yeah.
it, religion is an emotional feeling. Religion is something that, uh, right? And I went to a parish that was very liturgically progressive,
Oh, yeah?
oh, yeah.
You didn't have
Um,
liturgical dancers, did you?
no, it was never
Okay,
to the
okay.
point of that. Um, but it was very much and I grew up like maybe like 15 minutes out of Manhattan, so the music felt very show tuney,
Oh, okay, yeah.
like when we eat this bread and drink this cup,
Oh,
we
no.
proclaim yeah, it was very yeah, and like and a lot of like kind of more jazzy chops on the piano. And I love jazz. I'm a huge jazz fan, but like that's not the place for it.
There's a place and
And
a time, right?
there's a place and a time for jazz music, and the mass isn't it. And then I went to Seton Hall University in South Orange, New Jersey. Um, one part for the commute, very easy commute from where I grew up, and then one part for the Catholicity of it. And I um, I would say was very much gung ho on like, yep, you got to go to church. It's awesome. It's very fun. And all my teenage friends are in church, and we have our Jesus high and whatever. But I wasn't very like morally aligned with the church. I was very
Oh,
much
no.
you know what I'm saying? Like
Yes, yes, I know what you're saying.
and like I wasn't a
I
monster.
probably didn't even realize how that's something I didn't realize growing up, but I didn't have a dad that was on fire for the faith either,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. And then, I went to Seton Hall. there was like, it wasn't even like, is there a campus ministry? It's like, which branch of the campus ministry are you going to hang out with? There was St. Paul's Outreach. There was Focus, which stands for Fellowship of Catholic University Students. It's pretty well known, but just in case someone didn't know, there was also the Community of St. John, which are like a lesser known. They're not Franciscan, but they kind of have a Franciscan charism, if that makes sense. And
Sure.
there was also kind of just the generic Seton Hall campus ministry. And
A lot of
I started,
Catholic cliques, essentially.
oh yeah, yeah, there were. And there were a lot of people that um, I went to these campus events with, and here I am hearing about, um, you know, I've always been pro-life, but pretty much that was my only like outward yes. Like I had doubts about the real presence. I had doubts about why Catholics should or should not use contraception. I had doubts as to whether a Catholic should or should not wait before consummating before marriage, or right,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I heard all these very well-formed academic responses in these talks, in these whatever else. I thought, oh my gosh, uh, what the heck am I doing? And I'll never forget it. I was like, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been like 3 years since my last and I thought I was this perfect Catholic, and there's not a better feeling in the world than knowing you're not, and knowing that you need Christ's redemption and that you are a sinner. And I was so relieved after that confession, and I really worked to kind of create, to bring Christ to the center of my life. And I never not I it's not that I how do I word this? I never
You never disbelieved that Catholicism was
yeah,
true?
yeah, I never
Yeah.
disbelieved the faith. I never skipped mass or anything. I was just a shell of a Catholic, very much nominally Catholic who just happened to attend. But now I'm like, okay, yes, the catechism is the catechism. That's what I believe. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it,
You
you
went
know?
from like boiling water as like growing up down to like maybe just above lukewarm water while you were figuring all this stuff out.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, so I thought I was in fire with God because I had the Jesus high of like these youth retreats and
Did
whatever.
you do
And
like Life Teen and all that or whatever that's called?
no, so I've never heard of that, but
Maybe it
what?
wasn't Life Teen. I don't remember. I didn't have it either. We had like some where I grew up, at least in the specific area I grew up, we had like a bunch of Protestant groups that would meet. And like, oh
Okay,
yeah, come and meet up and
so
leave all that merry stuff at home.
yeah, I'm not going to say that Northern New Jersey is void of Protestantism, but it is so overwhelmingly Catholic that when I was a kid, I knew that there was Catholic and I knew that there was Jewish, but I did not know that Protestant was a thing until maybe I was in high school.
Really?
Well, maybe not high school, but
Okay, okay.
middle school for
I mean,
sure.
that's a nice area to grow up in as a Catholic. I'll give
It
you that.
it is, and but what we had in my parish was this thing called Antioch.
Really?
Yeah,
Never heard
so
of that.
I think it was local to my parish.
Okay.
And the whole idea was that the word Christian was coined in Antioch, and so this is where you find like the origin and whatever, blah blah blah. But very much the same type of thing of like teen-led talks,
Hmm.
uh, teen icebreakers, these silly little songs that you learn as a Catholic or Christian teen.
Yeah.
Um, like I'm counting on God with the whole hand gesture thing, and
Yeah. Good
and I
stuff.
was it good stuff you
Very, yeah,
said?
good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if that works for you, that's great. Just please make sure that you're living the moral teachings of the church as well. Um, but there's nothing wrong with charism, right? But
Right, right, right.
it wasn't really scratching my itch. And then I kind of like in college, I wouldn't say I became like trad exclusive, excuse me, but I was like, oh, the Latin Mass is like here, the Novus Ordo is here, and I think it was Charles Coulomb who made the point. For those who don't know Charles Coulomb, he is a trad, not rad, but he is a trad, and he's also an
There
American
is a difference
monarchist.
these days.
There is, yeah. And he made the point that to go to the Reverent Novus Ordo is better than the rushed, like
The pre-Vatican II Latin
the
Mass.
the pre-Vatican II Latin Mass. And his
Do
words,
you
not
know?
mine.
Do you know that they had to make it the mass not count if the mass was finished in under 15 minutes somehow?
I have heard that before. Yeah.
Just like how? How could you even? I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, he said the words like, and I'm not saying this, but Charles Coulomb said it. It's like, what would you rather go to, like a Reverent Novus Ordo or a 30-minute Latin Mass where the priest is still hungover from the night before and he's mumbling the words, rushing through it, skipping parts of the canon. So I'm much more so of like correct form of worship than I am which form are you using? And I guess that's where I am today.
Now, I would say that there is two things when it comes to the mass. One has
Sure.
to be valid. So
Yeah.
as long as it's valid, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
then second, I look for reverence, right? So if
Yeah.
I can't find it in a parish nearby, I'll drive a little further and find it in a parish that
Sure.
has
Oh
it.
yeah.
And
Yeah. I
luckily for
mean,
me, the bulk of the masses in my area are reverent, whether they're Novus
good.
Ordo or TLM.
That's great to hear, man. I mean, yeah, I'm very fortunate too. I live about 12, 15 minutes away from not one but four parishes that actually belong to the reverentmass.org
Oh,
website.
there's a reverentmass.org website.
Oh yes.
I'm not
Yeah.
aware of this.
Chris, I've opened up a whole world for you. And they have a
I'll
huge
have to check this
criterion.
out.
But I live, and it's all in the same town, because again, in New Jersey, there are just so many Catholics that all in the same town, there are four parishes, and like I mentioned this to you in the pre-show kind of thing, um, that it's run by the Oratory of St. Philip Neri, which their whole charism is to basically present good sermons and homilies and have a reverent mass. And St. John Henry Newman was a member of this. I wouldn't necessarily call it an or. I don't think it's really an order, but maybe so a confraternity of priests. I think that's
Okay,
probably a
okay.
better way of saying it. Yeah. But yeah,
So
reverence is definitely important. Yeah.
what maybe this is what exactly about the mass what gets you into the mood for mass, I guess? Because like
Hmm.
some people like the active participation of the Novus Ordo.
Sure.
I'm not
Yeah.
one of those people.
Okay. Interesting.
I don't mind singing and all that stuff, but like uh I guess for me, unless the music really moves me, I don't want to be singing. I'd rather be praying.
Okay.
But is it more of the liturgy that gets you like what about the mass is most important to you?
That's
Other than what is has to be important.
the Eucharist.
Right, right,
So
right. Other than
yeah,
what
so
has to be important.
yeah, so that was going to be my answer. But if since you gave me that kind of asterisk to the question, I would have to say, first of all, I am like many of you, sometimes wondering why are the Catholics the only denomination that makes such a big deal about the Sunday obligation?
Right.
Sometimes it annoys me to get out of bed on a Sunday morning and I think of all the secular brothers and sisters that I know that are sleeping in on a Sunday and or sleeping in longer at least. And so I would say that like ultimately, as Chris, as you very wisely point out, the body and blood of Christ in the Eucharist is the reason. It's not you, right? I don't have to get anything, but I would have to say, probably for me, uh, knowing and this is going to sound a little bit more like, oh, it's what my family has done for hundreds of years. It's not what I mean. The cloud of witnesses, I look at the stained glass windows, I look at the statues, and I kind of get a little bit like misty-eyed thinking of like what St. Paul refers to as the cloud of witnesses. It's like, I'm not, it's not just me and all the other people in the parish, it's the saints and the angels that are attending the mass too. And it's the greatest story ever told, it's the greatest love story. And I think to myself, I look at these stained glass windows and I think to myself, you know, that's a really, I've never seen that saint before, or I have seen that saint before and I know who it is and I know that they're here with me, and we're all praying together. And one of my favorite things to do, and maybe it sounds creepy, but I promise you it's not, is I don't
It's
necessarily like go down like this praying during after I've received communion. I watch all the other people receive and I look at them and I think to myself, I'm praying for them. And so I think it's probably the community, not, and it's not even just like the community of like, oh yeah, the pancake breakfast afterward. It's the community of
yeah.
like, yeah. And there was one saint that said, I think it was something, I think they're an English saint from like the Middle Ages, that there was like some, maybe Viking or Visigothic invasion, and they said, okay, give us all the treasures of the church. And the saint brought out, a man with a missing leg, a destitute child, maybe an orphan, a sickly one. Here are the treasures of the church, and that speaks volumes. And to be able to sit with people from all walks of life, every race, every background, every level of intelligence is an amazing thing. And it really goes to show how universal our church is.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Have you ever read Butler's Lives of the Saints in any of its forms?
Uh, my brother-in-law has like every every volume of it. I have
Yeah.
not. But I do try to, in the Magnificat magazine, I always try to look at the Saint Who.
I was just gonna ask because
Yeah.
obviously it's like a very fully encompassing level. I was just gonna say, who's your
Hmm.
favorite saint?
Oh, easy, 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 easy. Saint Anthony of Padua. Um, Easy.
That's that was the church that hosts the TLM near me, actually.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so numerous reasons. My middle name is Anthony. My confirmation name is Anthony.
It's your double Anthony if you
I'm
write
a
down.
double Anthony. My father's middle name is Anthony. My cousin's name is Anthony. Uh, the wonders that have come through his intercession are amazing. There's the prayer, "Be satisfied with me," and unbeknownst to me, I was praying this because I was, in college, and I again was trying to recalibrate my charism, I guess you could say, and I realized that I didn't need a wife who was, and I learned what love was in college. Love is to uh, the will the good of the other, and I realized like, okay, like I need to marry someone who I would, you know, fall down on my knees in servitude for, treat my wife the way I would treat God if I were to ever encounter him, like in a human being, form. This is obviously a human being form, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and and so I prayed the "Be satisfied with me" prayer. For those who are not familiar, it's basically like this idea of set aside all of your desires and make God your only, and it's something that was written, I guess, maybe even divinely inspired, I'm not sure, by St. Anthony, basically, make God your only desire. And a lot of Catholics who are single pray this prayer. Unbeknownst to me, my then a complete stranger, now my wife, uh, was praying that prayer as well.
Really, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, yeah, it's incredible. And she even, I don't know if she'll be upset if I tell this story, but maybe she'll be happy because it's proclaiming the greatness of Saint Anthony, I proposed in college, excuse me, and she lost her engagement ring. And
Oh no.
well, she found it,
Well, that's
but
good. That's good.
so spoiler, she found it, but she was a sacristan at the chapel at our college, and she was crying and crying, and she was looking through the trash cans. Everyone was like turning over everything they could in the chapel, in the campus ministry room, everything. They could not find it. She is praying to Saint Anthony. Uh, one of the priests that were still we just saw him yesterday, thanks be to God. Father Dennehy says, I can't believe, maybe he's saying this, I can't remember, but he did say, I can't believe you're not praying to Saint Anthony or whatever. And she goes into the little wardrobe in her dorm room, and you know changes her shoes, because she changed out of a nice pair of shoes into, and she sees it in the shoe. And it's like,
That's wild.
so pardon my French, but how the hell does that does that end up there? So thank you, Saint Anthony, for all the thing. And my son is named Anthony, and uh, he was he was due June 12th, but he was delivered on June 5th. And we thought, oh, we were hoping he would be a day late to be born. We were married on the feast of Saint Anthony, June 13th. We were hoping he'd be a day late to be born on the feast. But when we got his social security card in the mail, it was officially registered on June 13th.
That's
So
amazing.
it's a silly coincidence, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's my wife says, oh, I'll always be happy that my son Anthony got his social security card on June 13th. So easy by a country mile, St. Anthony is my favorite saint.
It's
Yeah.
funny how those things work out because like we had picked the name Simon for our third
Okay.
son,
Yeah.
and without even realizing it, he was born on the feast day of Saint Simon Stock.
Oh, wow.
So
I'm not
that
familiar
worked
with
out.
St. Simon Stock. Who?
The oh I should it's up tip of my tongue. The uh everybody wears them. Why can't I think of the name? The cloth. What the heck is that called?
Oh, oh
It's on the
man,
tip of my tongue.
scapular.
The scapular. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, yeah. So he's famous for the scapular for the most part.
Oh, so is he Dominican?
I he was the one that was given the scapular per the
Yeah,
legend,
because I can almost see it. There's like a painting of some sort of a friar receiving a
receiving it.
scapular
Yeah,
from
yeah. That's
the
him. Yeah,
heavenly
that's
abode. Yeah.
Saint Simon's stock.
Okay.
So my
Cool.
Simon was born on that. So that was kind of cool.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It's like those things just randomly happen,
Oh,
like and
the coincidences,
right, right, right.
are just
It
too uncanny.
and actually one of the
Who's your favorite saint?
probably Saint Mark just because it's my confirmation saint.
Awesome.
And the more I've done, it's funny, like because in eighth grade they're like, pick your confirmation saint.
Hmm.
I was like, well, okay. I opened up my Bible and the page said Saint Mark, so I picked.
Yeah,
It's like that was it. Like okay, but it the more I've dug into it as I've gotten older, the more it fits, and it's like, how does
sure.
that coincidence, stuff like that happen?
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
It really is because like
Yeah.
you'll pick something you think it's like no big deal, and then years later you're like, oh, actually that made total sense. It wasn't like I was really thinking about it in eighth grade very deeply,
Hmm.
because I was one of those after eighth grade. I was like, well, if you want to go to mass you can, and if you don't then that's fine. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
it's like, well, I'm not going for a few years then. Anyway, um I found my faith back in college, so like that's
Thanks
a
be
whole
to
long
God.
story. But and my wife was a part of that, and part of it was
That's
the area I
great.
was in, and um it's a long story. We don't need to get into it today. I've gotten into it before.
Sure.
One of these days, maybe I'll tell the whole thing.
Maybe someone will interview you one day.
Maybe, but it's a long story. But yeah, Saint Mark the Evangelist is
Great.
he's a cool saint. The more I
He
look into him,
is.
the more I'm happy I chose him.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that my name is just such a strange. If you add the confirmation saint in it, it's like there's just so many like consonants in it. It's just
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's
Well,
hard consonants, and it's like, oh, okay. Anyway,
yeah, that's all right.
but probably Saint Mark, and then second place would probably be shoot, probably Saint Jerome. I really like looking into
Oh,
him.
yeah,
He's pretty
for
cool.
sure. Yeah,
And then
I
like
mean,
maybe St. Augustine, you know, like the normal ones, like St. Augustine. I really like him.
yeah,
Or
yeah. It's
some people
good.
say
It's good to have church.
Augustine. I don't know. I don't
Oh,
know how you pronounce.
well, yeah. In Spanish, it would be Augustine, but
Yeah,
in
yeah,
English, it's at least in the Catholic realm, it's Augustine. But
right.
yeah, yeah. Church fathers are always great to have in your corner, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Hmm.
St. Irenaeus. I can't believe I didn't think of that. I read this past, like last year, the year before that, I read Against Heresies,
Oh,
cover to
okay.
cover. That was a painful read in some parts, but overall, it was very enlightening. Have you
Yeah.
read many of the church fathers?
I haven't have not. I always try to go a little bit further because I think a lot of, and I mentioned this in a video once, you know, Roman Catholics, or I should better say Western Rite Catholics, always
Yeah,
say, "Oh, I love the church fathers," and then someone says, "Okay, name them," and they say, "Well, Saint Augustine," and then they might say Saint Gregory the Great,
yeah.
and they might say Saint Jerome, and then they end up saying Thomas Aquinas, who isn't a church father.
No, he's a
Um,
doctor though.
he is a doctor, you're
Yeah.
right, but and
So is
then
Irenaeus, but he's actually a church father.
correct, yes. So they might name, or in John Chrysostom, right? Those are
Yeah,
kind of the typical, and they always accidentally throw in a church doctor in there.
yeah.
I always try to make sure that if I am praying the office of readings, I pay special attention to the church father readings because those are always very fruitful. And there
Oh
is a
yeah.
book I reviewed. Oh, it's a book that you pray like uh, a paragraph a day of the church fathers, and there's other ones that are a little bit more obscure, like, well, an Eastern Christian would laugh at us when I say this is more obscure, but you have to understand our perspective. Ephraim the Syrian, or Saint Polycarp, or whoever else. But yeah, no, definitely. I'd like to have read more, and my intention is to take a look at Jimmy Akin's book, The Fathers Know Best.
Oh yeah, I've heard that's a good one.
Yeah,
I haven't read it, but I've heard it's a good one.
and I find Jimmy Akin very approachable, and his books are a good, are they're brief, right? So I always want to take a look at Jimmy Akin's books. I also think Scott Hahn, I don't know if Scott Hahn has any titles that are so specific to the church fathers, but I think he's a very, I don't know, apparently he's controversial, but I think he's good for
Scott
understanding.
Hahn is?
Someone in the comments said that once, and I was like,
Hmm.
what?
I mean,
Scott
he
Hahn?
got he had a weird. It was something to do with his love of tradition. Got him in trouble with like mainstream Catholic media at one point in time.
Hmm.
Like there was a couple of websites that slandered him, but it really didn't affect his persona in the same way that other people have been
No.
affected by that.
Yeah.
Thankfully, because Scott Hahn is awesome.
Yeah.
I have no issues with Scott Hahn personally. I think he's really a really great author and speaker and everything else.
Yeah. My
Um,
mother-in-law really likes him. I should ask her if she can lend a book or two so I can take a look. But yeah.
if you do want a good book on the early church, I have one I would recommend.
Mm,
Although maybe don't use the one I use because the translation is by an Anglican and all the
okay.
footnotes are like trying to disprove Catholicism.
Oh man.
So it's like,
So we're
what?
talking like low church Anglican there. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just,
All
he's
right.
like, clearly this didn't mean the paper. It's like, whatever, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Just constantly trying to rag on like this didn't mean Pope, like whatever,
Right.
dude. Like, who
Okay.
cares? Anyway,
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
translation is fantastic until you get to the
Mm.
footnotes. But it's called
Okay.
History of the Church. It's by Eusebius of Caesarea. I don't know, whatever.
Okay.
Eusebius is the guy. And not to be confused with the Eusebius who was allegedly an Arian. This is not the same
Oh.
one.
Okay. Yeah.
But he was like part of he was like wrote this in like 325 ish.
Whoa. So
So
living amongst the church fathers, very
exactly.
much so. Okay.
Uh, and if you can find a good translation of it, it's very edifying because he talks about like what the martyrs all went through, and it's pretty wild.
Awesome. Okay.
Uh, there's a part that allegedly mentions Saint George, although it doesn't mention him by name, but it mentions his martyrdom, so that's cool.
Okay. Can you
Um,
put that in the comments, actually?
in the
I would really
comments,
appreciate that.
yeah, it's called History of the Church, and it's by Eusebius. I think
Perfect. Yeah. Awesome.
um,
Thank you so much.
I would check that one out. It was very good. I liked it. I read that one. I've read the Irenaeus book. Irenaeus is great, and I'm gonna give you a trivia.
Okay.
Although I probably just gave away the answer. Who was the first person in the church to refer to Mary as the new Eve?
Is it Irenaeus?
It is. I'm pretty sure it is,
Wow.
because he wrote it at like 200 AD. So
Well,
like,
yeah, and then but then who was so I always get Irenaeus and Ignatius of Antioch a little bit confused.
Irenaeus of Lyon. So he ended up in like
Okay.
French territory, but
Yes, he
he
did.
was the disciple of Polycarp, who is
Okay.
the disciple of Saint John the Apostle.
Okay. Yeah, because I know that there's a connection between Luke, Ignatius, and somebody else.
I
Um,
haven't followed that. Actually, to be honest, I should read
okay.
more about Ignatius of Antioch,
Mm.
especially when you got Protestant apologists trying to claim he didn't exist these days.
Whoa, no
I
kidding.
know, I'm like, what?
Wow. I
He's like,
mean,
there was a debate between Joe Heschmeyer and James White, in which James White tried to present that it was a scholarly opinion that Ignatius may not have existed. And I'm like,
wow.
you are
I think,
insane.
wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's something else.
But
Hmm.
I would, I mean, look, I would love to have Joe Heschmeyer on. I would not probably interview James White.
Mr. Lepanto says James White is never going to
I
live that
know
one down.
he will never live that one down. That was pretty bad because it's a very fringe opinion among even like scholars who
Yeah.
believe it. But
Yeah.
it's not like something they push either. It's like something they wrote down in a book. Like maybe this guy didn't
I
exist.
think the safest fringe opinion on that is that he's a conflation of more than one person,
Yeah,
much to the
I could
effect of
believe
Saint
that,
Christopher.
but
But because, Saint Christopher you know, is not real, but he's a conflation of multiple people. At least that's what
I
I
choose to
understand. But
believe the hagiography of the church. Okay,
hmm
I'm
hmm
okay with those things being real.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
doesn't hurt me to believe them, right? I
right.
mean,
hmm
okay,
Your
here's
prayers are being answered by somebody.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and the name Christopher is has a great meaning behind it, so I'm totally good
Yeah, well,
with
it's your namesake. Yeah.
yeah, exactly,
Right. So there you
exactly.
go.
Now, does so etymology, etymological wise, does
Yeah.
is Christian specifically like off of Christopher, or is it its own path from something else?
I think it has the same meaning in that the one who bears Christ is
Okay,
the etymology, though I think probably mine is a little bit more uh, uh, not Middle Eastern or Mediterranean, but like more so
different region
a
basically.
different region, and then
Okay,
the Topher part is probably, I would guess, more Germanic, more Gaelic. I would guess.
that's probably true.
Yeah,
There's like some
um,
Irish in my family line, so it's
for
probably that
sure.
from that area.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, okay. I was just curious because I've never looked into the etymology of Christian. I don't know many people named Christian, to be honest.
It really, yeah. I mean, it's not like John, but my my best friend growing up was named Christian, and he and I went to high school together, and there was at least one other boy named Christian. We went to an all boys Catholic high school.
Probably
Um,
more common in a Christian or Catholic school.
Probably, yeah. And so I've met multiple Christians. So it's not like I wouldn't say it's like an obscure
No,
name,
no, it's not obscure at all.
Yeah, it's
I
not
just
like,
don't know that many.
hmm
And
Yeah, and
one of the ones I met in actually this is kind of weird.
mhm.
I met a person that went by the name Christian. I'm assuming that was his name and not just a joke, but
Mhm.
he was a Muslim.
No kidding.
It's like
That had to have
why?
been a joke.
It's
I
like why?
think, yeah, that had to have been that had to have been a
Trolling
joke, but
parents, maybe? I don't know.
who knows? Or maybe he converted and just never. But Muslims tend to change their names, Muhammad Ali
Yeah,
was not
yeah.
born Muhammad Ali, but
I know it was weird. I was like,
yeah. Hmm.
are you serious? Or like I never got a good answer from the guy, but
Sure.
I do know for a fact he was a Muslim
Wow.
because he went to their prayer on the rugs and all that, whatever you call
Hmm.
that.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I can't think of the name. I used to know
Gosh.
what it was called.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because they would all like run to the bathrooms and get washed up, and then they'd
Yeah,
go do
what's
their
that called? A
prayer. And
mosque. A mosque.
yeah, what? Yeah, I think that's right.
Well,
Yeah,
that's their house of worship, but
but they didn't. They had like their own. So like, what's funny is at Dearborn, Michigan, where I went to college, they have a Newman Center on campus, but it's in like a small area of the campus. I think it's actually with the business school, if I remember correctly. I'd have to
mhm.
look up the layout of the campus again, but the biggest fellowships on campus were like obviously the Muslim Arabic group. And then second biggest was like this intervarsity Christian fellowship thing, which was
Oh,
like,
okay.
do you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
those are the people who invite like
Everybody.
the regards of like Cliff Knechtel. I don't know if you're
Yeah,
familiar with
yeah.
him.
The weird thing about that group was they're ecumenical
The
until
Catholic
you
shows up.
until the Catholic shows up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a second, hold on. This sounds like you guys are anti-Catholic a little bit. And then they'd
Mm-hmm.
have you like go to these retreats and stuff, and it was kind of expensive at that point. I was like, I'm
Hmm.
not going to these things. But what was even weirder to me is I think there was more Catholics that joined that than the Newman Center because they did a terrible job advertising the Newman
Mm,
Center.
yeah. It's interesting. There was no need for a Newman Center at Seton Hall
Well, I would
because
imagine.
yeah, because I from what I understand, a Newman Center is for non-Catholic universities.
The more secular ones or
Yeah.
otherwise.
But and from what I understand, they're not always on campus. They're always maybe like a house, maybe like a half mile away or something like that. That's the what I've always understood. But
One of my aunts
um,
used to work at one of the Newman Centers actually
oh, okay,
for quite a
yeah,
long time. I think she was there for almost probably 20 years. I mean, it was a long
wow,
time she was there.
wow, that's a career, huh?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's kind of a long story, but she's not there currently. But
Hmm.
she really enjoyed it, and she probably
Yeah.
would have kept going had if the way the life her life has been going would have been different. She probably still be there.
Mm,
But she's doing a good thing right now. I'm not gonna divulge her personal
yeah,
life on
of
here or
course
anything,
not.
but
Yeah.
there was a good reason why she left, and so it's not a bad thing. But
Okay. Well, I'm glad for her then.
me too.
Yeah.
And then what was I? Oh, here's something I've asked a lot of guests. I keep
Sure.
forgetting to bring this up. So you're going to be doing a video on Bible
I
translations, which ones you
am.
should own,
Yeah.
but this is a question related to that. Uh,
Hmm.
a lot of the early church believe one way, and a lot of modern church people believe the other way.
Okay.
Do you think that Genesis 3:15 should read "She shall crush thy head" or "He shall crush thy head"?
She.
Okay, so we're in agreement on this. Can you
Yeah.
tell me why you believe that?
Well,
I'm just
uh,
curious.
I think it has to do with the whole idea of the Marian concept. I feel that when it comes to uh, when it comes to scripture, there is so much that also alludes to the Blessed Virgin Mary that that is also, I don't think that there are divine prophets talking about Mary in the same way that they're talking about Christ. That
Right.
would, I think, be a little bit extreme. That would be,
I mean, there are
but
definitely references to her in the prophets.
oh no, there certainly are. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not what I was saying. Um, but I I guess my point is that there has to be an allusion or a foreshadowing to Mary being the new Eve, Mary being the uh, Theotokos slash Christotokos,
Right.
that, she is the co-redemptrix of sorts, or the
Although not
mediatrix.
official title by the Pope. Mediatrix,
No,
yes.
yeah,
No,
mediatrix,
Mediatrix of
yes.
Graces, right? Yeah, not
Yeah, I would say
she
that
did not officially
co-redemptrix
get
is
co-redemptrix.
that's a troublesome term for
It
for
is
sure.
because understanding that word requires almost a thesis paper.
Yeah.
Have you ever
Uh,
have you ever looked into it?
I
How
yes
about
and
we save
no.
we'll save co-redemptrix discussion until after we get through the she shall crush the head. How about that?
Yeah, definitely. So, I would say that you know, uh, it definitely lends itself more to the Mariology that
Yeah.
Catholics are really comfortable with, and yeah, I couldn't tell you from like an etymological background or from like a scholarly background what the ancient Hebrew says per se. Uh,
Nobody can. We don't have it.
oh, okay. Well, there you go. Um,
Not even the Dead Sea Scrolls had that particular
no
verb
kidding.
or word
Yeah,
in it.
yeah.
The oldest extant texts that I'm aware of, I think, were like Syriac might have had some,
Oh,
but
okay.
it's like it's very obscure to find it, and it's like a lot of times Protestants will point to the Masoretic, which says, I think it plainly says he in the Masoretics,
Mm,
which is like 800 to 1200 AD, depending on which manuscript you look at.
yeah,
So we're already talking like 800 plus years after
yeah.
everything
It
happened.
gets a little bit wishy-washy after that, you know.
But I can tell you, there's commentaries on that part of scripture by Philo, Josephus,
Mm-hmm,
um, and obviously the early church fathers all commented on it too. And they believe more of a consensus was she.
mm-hmm.
Now, what's
Yeah,
funny is the verbiage used in the oldest Hebrew and Latin that we have, at least the Hebrew and the Greek, point to a more androgynous,
mm,
or rather ambiguous term, which could be man or woman,
right.
or
That's kind of
they.
what Mr. Lepanto is suggesting in the comments. I don't know if you took a
Yeah,
look.
yeah.
Yep,
Oh,
there you
I thought
go.
he was talking about co-redemptrix with that particular
Oh
comment, but
no,
he's
I
talking
think he was
about
talking about crushing the head of the serpent. Yeah,
actually the reason I appreciate Philo's commentary on it is because Philo was contemporary with Jesus. He was
right.
a philosopher, a Jewish philosopher at the time of Jesus, and so when he's
Mm-hmm.
commenting on it, that is, in my opinion, if you're like a prominent Jewish philosopher at the
Yep.
time Jesus is alive, you're commenting on the scriptures. Uh, that would be the Jewish
Well,
understanding
and
of the
and
scripture.
I was gonna say too, you know, there is so much maternal power in Judaism.
Yeah, because the
You know,
matrilineal line is what matters for you to be
Exactly.
ethnically Jewish.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of contradicts what I was saying before about, but it's true. If you go, and I grew up around a lot of Hasidic Jews, that if you ever go to any Jewish community in America or anywhere in the world, it's men that are very much leading the young children to temple and so on, and they are praying the Shabbos prayers, etc. But
But who educates in the home?
oh, the mother,
That's right.
right?
Yeah. So
So,
that's why it was
and,
important, I think,
and
in what is it, Ezra, where he says that they have to marry only within their
cor
religion.
correct,
Yeah.
and like you already mentioned, uh, and this is kind of like a a segue into another topic, but the idea of the bat mitzvah is a relatively new one.
It
The
is. Yeah.
the bat mitzvah is for girls and the bar mitzvah is for boys, and there's this whole thing of a woman's Judaism is not obtained through some sort of ritual. It is obtained through her own femininity. And
Yeah.
so the mother, the woman, plays an incredibly important role in the Jewish world. And so I feel that Mary and Jesus being Jews, there's obviously going to be a lot of conversation. Even if the serpent isn't the crushing the head of the serpent is not a foreshadowing of Mary, I think that it shows that women were not to be reckoned with even in ancient Judaism.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But Philo goes through and basically, like, I've come to this conclusion based on all my reading on it because I've spent a lot of time on this one because my
Hmm.
father-in-law and I talk about it all the time.
Hmm.
Because certain Bibles change other things, like,
Sure.
instead of a virgin, a young maiden, or like a
Uh-huh.
young girl, and it's like, no, Isaiah meant what he meant. Let's
Oh
leave it
yeah.
alone.
Hmm.
But Philo says that it would be a barbarism of language to expect that pronoun to be male,
Mm.
because essentially when you go through it, it's she, and it's talking about the snake, he, and then it doesn't identify who it's talking about in that sentence. And so if
Mm,
it's not identifying it and it uses a verb that's not a male verb, well, if it could be either or, it has to be the woman.
right.
And one of the reasons why you would describe the crushing of the serpent as a non-female pronoun is because the logic or the mind or the decision making aspect is considered male in
Mm-hmm.
ancient Judaism, and like the emotion or the heart is considered female in ancient Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're describing the woman's intelligence, you might describe it as male pronouns.
Right.
So that I just found that super interesting. So like in my mind, it has to be Mary, and
Mm-hmm.
her seed is obviously Jesus. So it's
Correct.
describing them both in Genesis 3:15, but the one that crushes the serpent through her fiat is Mary.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely what I would, like you said, we're in alignment with that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Hmm.
I just found that interesting. When you go down the line, it's like wow, that's pretty powerful.
Yes, it is. It's
I think I
amazing.
had a intellectual reversion back to Catholicism before I really spiritually felt it.
Well, that's actually kind of part of why my name is Convinced Catholicism, is because I was convinced of its truth, and I was impressed with the fact that Catholicism had kind of like a very high brow answer for every kind of aspect of life. I
Pretty much
mean,
everything.
yeah, I mean the catechism goes through everything, right? So,
And
and
thank
that's,
God for Father Mike Schmidt's going through it too, because he's
yeah,
he's awesome with that stuff.
he's great. Yeah, I mean, Ascension Press in general makes such great stuff. They're really, they, I think they deserve a higher place in the I mean, they're already so high in the Catholic hierarchy of content creation, but they deserve a much higher spot too. And they apparently they're really good to work for too. That
I believe
they're,
that.
yeah, that, yeah, just compassionate people, you know.
I think they're the first, at least in a long time, to put out a legit leather Bible.
Oh, really?
Not like a bonded leather, not
Yeah.
like, because like a lot of it's bonded or faux leather or,
Hmm.
but I think theirs is actually full leather goat skin.
Sure. Oh,
The
wow.
newest one
Okay.
they just put out. It's like a high, it's like 100 and so, no, I think I take that back. Word on Fires are also, they're
Oh,
full bone
true.
leather.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
they're
But
calf
theirs
skin.
isn't like one, they're not all in one.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that gets to be very expensive if you're collecting the Word on
Yes.
Fire Bible.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have any intention of buying any more Word on Fire Bible volumes, and that's one of my more controversial videos. They're either too upset at me for not liking it enough, or too upset at me for criticizing it to any degree. But that's all right. You know, you're entitled to your opinion.
I think it's a cool project, but
It's an amazing project,
I do
but
find it interesting that they settled on. I think they settled on the NRSV, if I'm not
oh,
mistaken, isn't
I
it?
don't. Yeah, I don't recall the translation, but excuse me, my biggest hang up on it was that a lot of the commentary is Bishop Barron, which is nothing wrong with Bishop Barron.
Yeah, he's got good
I
commentary,
love Bishop Barron. I think he's great. But I was also expecting more commentary from the Church Fathers,
which would be nice.
which would be great. But also, there was no easy way to figure out, like, okay, start, stop. Like, all right, I'm going to sit
Oh,
here.
okay, okay.
I'm going to start on Matthew 1, but okay, where do I end? And yeah,
Yeah.
but I think it's a great product, and I think if you want to get it, get it. But that's definitely one of my more as controversial and scandalous as it can be, uh, more heated comment sections for sure.
Okay, I'm just double checking something from earlier.
Oh, sure.
Um, flexible imitation leather. Okay, I was right. It's
Okay.
not real leather, but it is
Ah,
very
okay.
nice.
Yes.
I said I was gonna check it like a million like early on in the podcast,
No,
and
yeah,
then I
I'm
never
glad you
did.
checked it out.
Okay, because I'd hate to say it isn't and then find out no, it actually is, and then
Hmm.
anyway, I do plan to do a review of a couple books I own in the
Go
future and
for
see
it.
how it goes.
Yeah,
I'm
go
just
for it.
I'm not trying to jump in your space or anything, but
No.
I'm gonna give
Hey,
it a shot.
I don't have a monopoly over
I
this,
know
you
you don't.
know.
I know that. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I might do a couple reviews and see how it
Yeah.
goes, but that's not gonna be the focus of my channel.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um,
I mean, I always get excited when other people start doing it. There's a couple of very small channels like Terry's Catholic Book Reviews, um, Dale in a Tin Can, those sorts of, and
his
I
his
always
are
love,
like his are like little stories the whole time
oh
he's telling
yeah,
it.
his little monologues stirring the coffee
Yeah, yeah.
in the beginning. He's a great
He's
guy. Yeah.
he seems really cool.
Hmm.
Obviously I don't personally know him, but you feel like
Right.
there's an air of like knowing them when they get that personable with
For
it.
sure. Yeah.
There was a question oh, uh, what Bible do you read from? Like, maybe I shouldn't give it away, whatever you're doing with your Bible
Mhm. No,
translations,
I'm
but
not gonna. No, because I'm gonna talk about multiple translations. Typically, so like when I'm not reading just straight from my missal, which I suppose is that like NASB, right? I think maybe.
I think
Uh,
the missile is NAB.
NAB. I knew it was
Okay, yeah, which is
New
my
American.
that's my least favorite translation, to be honest.
Yeah, well, it's the one that we're kind of stuck
It's
with, right?
liturgically
But
what we're stuck with. I agree.
yeah,
Yes, yes. So it's good to
um,
read it, but it's my least
yeah,
favorite.
but I typically go for the uh second Catholic RSV.
Oh, RSV
Right.
2CE. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what it is. RSV
yeah,
2CE.
and that's the one that Ascension Press puts out. Yeah,
Ascension puts it out by ways of the Great
and
Adventure Catholic Bible.
Ignatius is, I think, the owner of the translation.
I believe they are.
Yeah,
Um, I also took a look at ESVCE, and
I've heard good
um,
things about it, but I really don't know because it's such a literal translation.
yeah, I'm still trying to dig more into it and I'm trying to figure that one out, but I like it, you know.
Is it the
But
Augustine Press or whatever the heck they're called?
the Augustine Press, I think, is the one that
I think that's or the
yeah,
Augustine group that puts it out. I don't know what it is.
the Augustine something or another
Yeah,
are
the
the
Augustine Institute. I don't know what.
are the ones that put that out. Yeah. Hmm.
What's your favorite part of the Bible as far as like reading, like Old Testament, New
Hmm.
Testament? What's your favorite?
I think so. If okay, so I'll give you my four favorite books of the Bible. I like Isaiah. I like
Mhm.
Psalm. I love Psalms. Oh,
Psalms are great.
yeah, and I would say Psalms and Proverbs are like a tie. And I would have to say the letters of Saint Paul is another book, and then I like Matthew.
Yeah.
I think Matthew's a great gospel. Um, it's I think John is a little bit too well, it's divinely inspired, so it's great. But no, but uh, it
But
sounds a
each
little bit,
person will have a different taste. So
yeah, it sounds a little bit too much like a lawyer quoting something like, in the first part of the first section of the first, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and the God was, it sounds a little bit like in subject to subsection B, clause A, but I think that the Gospel of Matthew is great. Uh, but yeah, I would have to say probably my favorite thing to take a look at is the Psalms. If I had to pick from those four categories, because it's the entirety of church history wrapped into one book. I find it amazing that Christ prayed it himself.
yeah, he
It's
did. That's
about
kind of
Christ.
yeah.
Um, and it's kind of it's trippy, like it's a mind bend, to think about it that way. But for that reason, I like Psalms.
Now, you should, I'm sure you're aware of this, but a lot of people aren't. The Liturgy of the Hours doesn't actually contain the full Psalter.
Yeah, I did know that.
I always blow people's minds when I tell them, like, did you realize there's pieces missing from the Psalter in here? And they're like, what?
Yeah, and I forget which Psalms are missing, but it has something to do with like maybe it's the one that says like dash the infants against a stone, I think is
I,
one
I,
of the Psalms that's missing. But
it's like
I
the quote unquote curse Psalms, I guess
the
is what they
cursed
call them.
Psalms, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. You're absolutely right. But there, I did, silly me, I said in Shorter Christian Prayer, and you get through all 150 Psalms in this book. And then someone was like, wait, they have more Psalms than this than Liturgy of the Hours? I'm like, oh, crud. I was like, oh no, I made a mistake. And I think, I don't know if I pinned the comment. I keep on thinking I do, but uh, I now I definitely know that. But yeah, it does not go through all one for like politically correct reasons, which is
Which
silly.
is
But
sad. I like, honest to
yeah.
God, I don't understand
Hmm.
why in a culture where people are seeking more of a traditional, although then again, this is published in the 70s, so
Well,
it,
yeah. There's a
originally
lot to
anyway.
say about the 70s, right? But
Yeah, that's where we get all of our guitar folksy music in mass, which I
yeah.
love so much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Have you ever seen Mass of the Ages, the documentary about the TLM?
Oh.
It's very well done, honestly, and clearly it's done by people who
Is
are
this
more Novus Ordo oriented, actually.
who does that? Is that Edward Sri?
I don't know, but the YouTube channel is literally called Mass of the Ages.
Oh, then I have not seen it.
You
No,
should give it a shot. The,
I
the
will.
second part opens with like kids TV shows matching liturgical music. So like there's a version of the glory to God where it's
Oh, yeah,
My
yeah.
Little Pony matches it.
Oh
Yes.
man.
But there's another song,
Wow.
Horse Lord Films does it. Yeah, Lepanto's
Okay.
got it. Um, there's another one that actually is like beat for beat, melody for melody from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And I finally heard that song in mass a couple weeks after watching it. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like
I think
I never put that
I
together.
might be the only person who has noticed this, but there is a English translation of the Agnus Dei, which is the Celine Dion "My Heart Will Go On."
No,
It's
they have that in there, I
Oh,
think.
they
I'm pretty
do.
sure I'm
Okay,
pretty
so
sure
I
they've
was,
got it in there.
yeah, because it's every night in my Lamb of God you take
Yes,
away.
it's
Yeah,
in there.
so
You gotta watch this. At least the second part intro.
yeah,
Watch that. Mind blown. Oh my gosh, the music should not be this.
yeah. I mean my in-laws, I don't think they'll watch this. They I will say that their parish is good. And they have like it's a theater in the rounds type church,
Yeah.
and it's often on the Facebook page, I'm fed up with ugly churches. And it's not the best looking church, but I have been to the ugliest church. It's in Drogheda, Ireland. Look it up
W-
later, but
yeah, I'm gonna have to now.
but or maybe it's Dunleary, Ireland. One way or another, I have been to the ugliest church in the world, but um I attend my in-laws' parish on a somewhat regular basis, and I mentioned the reverendmass.org to them, and they're like, oh, our parish isn't there. And I'm like, well, yeah, they do the glory to God,
Yeah.
glory to, and it's like, and and I always say to them, yeah, there's just something about it that it's just missing that magic touch that will get them on that list. Because otherwise, it's a great, the ugliness and the melodies aside, they do a reverent mass. Yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I have to say the music, I think, is like the tipping point for, because if you could have like the best priest, like a ton of altar
Hmm.
servers,
Yep.
incense, candles, the whole shebang, right?
Oh, they have
But
all
if
that, but the
but if
music
the
is just,
music,
yeah.
if it doesn't match what's happening on the
Hmm.
altar,
Hmm.
it takes me out of the reverence a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
anytime I hear the strum of a guitar, I'm like, I really
Mm.
wish it was just a cappella today. It's like I'm like
Hmm.
I don't need the percussive string instrument, you
Sure.
know. It's like, or even like piano. I'd rather have organ personally. I don't, or a cappella. And do you have any preference on music?
So yeah, I do actually, and I I once heard, and I don't know if it's true, that the organ, quote unquote, is the only acceptable instrument in a liturgical setting because it does something where when people hear it, they can catch the tune of it better, but
It
also
also
because
emulates the human
I
voice.
was going to say it emulates
Yeah.
the voice box, right?
Yes.
So your windpipe and the pipes of the organ are very much anatomically similar. So I
I think the
like
second
organ.
closest is the flute.
I would imagine probably yes, it is. I also don't necessarily have an inherent problem with piano used during the responsorial psalm. And the
Sure.
reason why is because, and for any other liturgical music, not necessarily, but it does a good job of emulating the sound of a harp, which of course the
David.
psalmist David used a
Yeah.
harp. So I don't have a problem with the organ. I don't have a problem with piano during the responsorial psalm. And I like a lot of these elevated, for lack of a better term, like it sounds bad, but like these Anglican hymns, like
Well,
"Let all mortal flesh keep silence" is technically Anglican, but
but everything that's Anglican comes from originally the Sarum Rite, which was a
you're
Catholic rite.
correct.
So
Yeah.
like it's really
Hmm.
not that. Look, if we could get like a legit ordinary or Sarum Rite thing in the Catholic Church, and those hymns were used liturgically in the Novus Ordo, I'd be pretty happy.
I'd be happy with that too. Yeah.
I've been listening to. You ever heard of Tenebrae with
Yeah,
Nigel?
sure.
I love their music.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
They're awesome.
Hmm.
They've got Let All Mortal Flesh Keep Silence. They did that one a couple years ago. It was very
Hmm.
good. And they did
And Tenebrae, is that who's the artist or?
Tenebrae. I think it's Nigel. Oh, what is the guy's name? I've subscribed to them on YouTube because every time
Okay.
they put out a song, I'm like, okay, I'm listening to this.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
Nigel
great.
Short.
Well,
That's it. Nigel Short.
Nigel Short. Yeah, no, because Tenebrae is I guess it's the style of music, I suppose. But
It's
yeah,
also like something we do in like liturgically in on Good Friday, right?
I believe so.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
Tenebrae is like
Tenebrae
what
Mass
follows
or something.
everything else. Yeah.
Yep. Cool. Yeah.
There was one other question. Oh, actually, I was gonna say when I was reading Josephus, have you read any of like the that kind of literature?
Yes. I don't recall much of it, but I do remember, being a teenager and kind of questioning uh the legitimacy of the faith. And I was like, oh, well, are there any sources outside the Bible that talk about Jesus? And of course,
And
the answer is
Josephus,
yes,
yeah.
Josephus, right?
And then I
And
think there's one other one too. One of the Roman historians also
oh yeah,
mentions him.
there's a few. I think there's at least two or three of them. And I remember, I think I could be wrong on this. Don't quote me, but I do think one of these historians was in the temple the day that the shroud was torn. Um,
The
and
only one that could have been that I would have thought would have been Josephus because he was a
I think it was,
Pharisee.
pardon?
It had to have been Josephus because he was a Pharisee then.
Correct. I think it was Josephus, and he reports on it, I believe.
He says that Jesus could have been the Messiah, essentially. Like
Mm,
that's the way he reports it, if I remember
yeah.
correctly. But
Hmm.
additionally, that's actually not why I brought it up, but that's a
Mm,
good point. I like all that.
hmm.
Uh, he talks about what instruments were used at the temple, and that opened my
Wow.
eyes to like maybe the organ isn't the only thing I should tolerate in my church
Hmm.
music, because like they had a harp, which obviously goes back to David,
Sure.
trumpets,
I was gonna say trumpets,
yeah,
cymbals, I believe as
horns,
well. Were yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like there, I mean, really, there's actually similar sounding things in church in general. With we got like our bells.
Mm-hmm.
We've got that weird spinning thing, that click 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 thing, whatever the heck that's called. I've never actually
Mm-hmm.
seen it in a church, but I've
It's
seen it
very
in
rare.
films where people actually use it, and I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, interesting, because I don't even know where that would be at in the mass,
Yeah.
but
It
whatever.
would be in a procession during like Holy Week, but rare. I mean, I've never seen it myself, but I was gonna say you get the full you get the full ensemble of like ancient Israelite instruments, especially during like Christmas and Easter masses.
Hmm.
Because I think like probably it's an obligation probably for every parish in America to sing that one hymn, Jesus Christ is risen
Oh yeah,
today,
yeah. Oh gosh.
and you always hear the trumpet going da da na 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 na
Yeah.
na na, and they always get that ensemble for, and I'm okay with that too, when it
Yeah,
comes to
sure, sure.
liturgics, but the guitar not so much though. I'm not
The
too.
guitar does feel a little
Mhm.
wrong, and it's not because it's a guitar. Actually, I was thinking about this the other day. If they could play the guitar in a more reverent manner that didn't sound like the 1970s we're calling,
Mm,
maybe I would appreciate the guitar test. But then it's still like, yeah, maybe not. But it never sounds, the guitar, whatever the music is they use with the guitars, it never sounds like it's correct for the mass. It
mm,
always sounds like it belongs in a, like some Protestant church somewhere down the road.
mm, mhm.
At least that's my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I was never keen on it. But yeah, I mean, I've thought about it a lot, and maybe a little bit too much, but uh I took a class on liturgical music at Seton Hall. I was the only non-seminarian in the class.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
And
funny.
I'll never forget what the professor said, but that he said that it needs to be like uplifting to God and not to the people. And he did explain that whole the pipes of the organ represents like the windpipes in the human body, and it's much easier for a human to uh, sing to
Harmonize?
to harm. Yeah, perfect word for it. Yeah, to harmonize for it. Yeah. I mean, and when we talk about Eastern Catholics, right? They are just a cappella, right? They don't
Yeah, I'm
even
fine
have.
with acapella. I
Yeah,
like acapella masses
yeah.
personally.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's great. I haven't been to too many that are just uh, a cappella, but that's definitely something I would look forward to. Hmm.
All right. Let's see. Is there any more questions I can ask you that are related to book review? Okay, how about this one?
Sure.
When you're looking for a good book,
Mm.
how important is it to you that it's physically like well put together
Oh,
versus the
yeah,
content inside of it? Because sometimes I found that like the only copy of a book you can get is like the worst. It's like perfect bound. The glue's falling
sure.
apart. It was printed in the 1980s, but nobody's reprinted it.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a great question. And one of the things I look for in a book, and I think a lot of Catholics and all Christians alike always dream of having this beautifully patinaed and worn book, and it's the pages are wrinkled, and the binding is starting to fray, whether it's a cloth bound or leather, it's starting to fray, and
Because you've used it so
it's,
much.
yeah, exactly. And the only way to actually achieve that properly is if it's really well bound, because it's going to
Yeah.
withstand a lifetime of prayer and emotion and feelings and being put in pockets and backpacks and whatever else. Um, when it comes to books that I want to review, I think it goes one of two ways. One is if it's currently being printed, I will look for whether or not it is nicely bound, right? So, and I will put that toward whether it's good or bad. So, for example, um, when it comes to the oh gosh, um,
This is a currently in print one.
well, yeah. So, some people don't like the binding on that, some people do, but a Baronius book or
Isn't this
or
one? This one's sewn binding, right?
it is, yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain.
Okay.
But so like
It's a
let's
little
say
tight, but
it's a tight binding, yeah. So like
that'd be
let's
my
say
only complaint.
yeah, it takes some breaking in for sure. Let's take for example the monastic diurnal by Farnborough
That
Abbey.
one is lays flat right out the gate. I love
Yeah,
that one.
that is like I would say the quintessential, and I'll give it a higher. appreciation if it's better bound. But if it's something like that leaves more desire, I guess maybe like some books by Catholic Book Publishing Company, I'll say it's not as good. But if I want to review something for content's sake, for example, I reviewed the Knox Bible,
The
or
Baronius one or the other
yeah,
one?
no. So that's the thing. The Baronius was way too expensive at the time, and I don't plan on buying one for myself. So I just wanted to rate the translation. So I used to teach, and the school that I taught at was getting rid of some of their older, more worn out copies in their school library. And so the librarian and I are friends. We still talk from time to time. She was going to say, "Oh, do you want this book? I know that you're religious and whatever." And I taught at a Catholic school,
Yeah.
and I said, "Oh, the Knox Bible." I'm like, "Sure." And it's a library edition. It's
So
seen better
it's
days.
better bound for sure, though. The library
Yeah,
editions usually are bound a little better.
they usually are. Yeah, but this was, I mean, really worn out. I mean,
Was it?
but yeah, it was. The cover was especially.
Okay. It didn't
And there
even,
was,
did it have the usual plastic on the outside?
yeah, it had the cellophane on it.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I mean, not to do a self promotion, but you can check out the review on my channel. But
Right, right, right.
and I made the point. I wasn't reviewing it for the actual physicality of the book. I was reviewing it for the content. But I would say 9 times out of 10, I would say, like, 99% of the time, the quality definitely goes into it.
Yeah.
Um, there are just some books, unfortunately, that you just have to get the print on demand version, and that's that. But
There's
yeah.
also some like, unless somebody like Church Latin reprints things, because he's one of the
Hmm.
few preserving
Hmm.
Christian publications does some
Yep.
of this too. There's very few ways to get some more obscure older Catholic books.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if you wanted to pray the Divino Flatu liturgy, not liturgy hour, well, yeah, liturgy hour, divine office, whatever.
Yeah.
It's the pre 55. You pretty much are stuck getting secondhand stuff to do that.
Either that or adjusting the rubrics to the Anglican breviary, but it's going to be in English and it's not going to be in Latin, and
Right,
you
right,
have
right.
to be very almost like a savant, like adjusting the rubrics in that book. So yeah, forget trying to pray the Divino Afflatu for sure.
There is two English editions that were printed of Divino Flatu. Did you know that?
No, I did not. Thank you for informing me.
Benziger printed two of them. There
Oh
was
yeah, okay.
one. There
Yeah.
was one in the 1950s, and there was one in the 1930s, and one
Okay.
of them is on archive.org.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
you can actually look at it. There's some pages that are cut off, but
Hmm.
it's all there.
Sure.
I downloaded a set. I think I did anyways. I downloaded a set to
Mm.
have on my computer just for fun.
Yeah, that's definitely, it's always fun to look at old forms of the breviary, just as a hobby almost.
Yeah, I nerd out on that stuff.
Hmm.
That's why Derek and I have been talking for like 4 months because we both nerd out on that stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But the oldest like approved Catholic laity breviary, if you want to call it that, in English, if you get out of the Anglican circles,
Hmm.
is the Marques Butte version. It was printed in like 1908,
Hmm.
I think.
Hmm.
It's the only pre Divino Afflatu English Catholic breviary
Wow.
that I know of anyway. And
And
that one
that's
is
in,
actually in print.
I was just about to say it's not in print, is it?
It is. It's just
Wow.
it leaves something to be desired. It's a print
Hmm.
on demand thing. You can get it
Oh,
off of
okay.
what is that one that everybody uses? Lulu, I think.
Probably
And
Lulu. Yeah.
the annoying thing is because Lulu's page count maxes at like 1,000 pages. I think
Oh.
they printed the ordinary in its own book,
Oh
and
my
then
gosh.
the rest of it is like a 4 volume set. So it's like five
Hmm.
volumes for a 4 volume. Anyways, I don't know how good it is, but it
Hmm.
does exist and you can buy it.
Okay. Interesting. I might take a look at that then.
There was a set on eBay of the legit 1908 leather bound.
Hmm.
And had I realized what it was, I might have bid on it.
Hmm.
But it was
Yeah.
like hunting
You,
for old breviaries is like a side passion of mine.
yeah, there's a guy, I think he's a Methodist. His name is Taylor Loy. You might have seen him on Facebook here and there. He has just like probably every Western breviary that was ever printed. I mean, the guy, hats off to him, but yeah, I'm not, even with the amount of Catholic books I have now, there's no way I would get to the levels that this guy has. Taylor Loy. Yeah.
I'll just check him out. He's probably in the group I'm in.
Oh, he's a, yeah, he no, he definitely is. Yeah, because we were talking about the group before, and he's an old haunt. Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
regular patron of that for sure.
The actually the gem, whatever you want to call it, the whole, not the Holy Grail. The white whale that I've been searching after is a
Hmm.
good condition 1964 Benziger Bros breviary, because it's the 1962 in English in one volume.
Wow.
So I'd like to get that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's probably some like 90-year-old priest that has it on the bottom of his shelf that he
There's
doesn't even know
usually
it's
there's
there.
usually like three or four of them on eBay, but they always want like $300-400 for a single book, and I'm like, eh. Cheapest one I've seen is, it's pretty beat up, but it's about 150 bucks, and I've
Hmm.
been like, if I could rebind it, maybe. Whatever.
Yeah, I haven't rebound any books. I'm always like weary
Nervous.
of that, I
Yeah.
guess. But yeah,
I've
maybe
done.
one
I think
day.
I've rebound about 4 or 5 books.
Oh, no kidding.
I mostly just did like some cheap, perfect bound books, just testing my skills on them.
Oh, you do it yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, see personally, I would have sent out for it, but
For something like that, I probably would get it professionally
hmm
done. But I've
cool.
I've I've played around with rebinding stuff. It's not as hard as you'd think, but getting it to look really nice is.
Mm, yeah. And also,
Like,
I think maybe getting the page edges perfectly aligned might be a little bit difficult too.
for rebinding purposes, because usually you put it in a grip, and then
Oh,
you
okay.
you saw like, not saw off, but sand off the edges,
Right.
and then you can do the curved edging too. I haven't done that yet, but I've got the
Mm,
tools to do it if I want to, like a curved edge to the pages.
okay.
And gilding's a little easier too. You can either do it with a foil, or you can paint it on with the right kind of
Hmm.
paint. Um, then you got to buy the leather, so you got to find a person who sells leather and the book. It's a whole mess, but
Mm,
uh, I want to test my luck with a flexible binding here in the near future. I haven't done that yet.
mm.
I've always done hardboard binding, but anyway, that's something I do as a hobby. It's not
That's
like,
really cool, man. You know, I always appreciate when people share what their hobbies are because
it's that
I
and
find it
roasting
in
coffee. I like that too.
roasting coffee.
Yeah, I like to
Oh,
roast
wow.
coffee too.
Very cool. Yeah, I was gonna say I appreciate when people share their hobbies because it shows, the talents that God has given us, and uh, it gets me inspired to kind of pick up on my own hobbies.
What
Um,
what kind of hobbies are you into?
I'm into a few things. Well, one of them is this YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But another one I am on and off on is brewing beer.
You
Um,
brew beer, nice. That's
yeah,
like
with
the
kits.
with kids?
With kits.
Oh,
Sorry.
kids. I was
No,
like,
no.
what?
No, no, no.
I mean, I
Um,
guess they could just do it and not taste test it, but
yeah, no, exactly. But um, so I have one of these kits that you can
sure.
buy all the ingredients and you mix it together. And I'm a huge history buff. I love history. So I also like I've never done model trains, but I like trains. I like I guess like watching videos about trains,
Well,
which
they
is like
are
super nerdy.
interesting.
They're very interesting. And I guess like lastly, and I don't know if this is even like a common thing, but like historical wargaming. So
Oh, that's cool, like Age of Empires and that kind of stuff, or
no,
like.
no. So that's like a video game, and definitely that's fun. But I'm talking about like little miniatures, and then you paint them, and then
Oh,
you can
okay.
kind of,
Like
uh,
reenact Civil War battles with miniatures,
kind of, yeah,
or like
kind of.
Revolutionary, or what further
You
back than that
you could
even.
do any war. Yeah, you could do any war, and then there's different rule sets and dice that you can.
Who produces something like that?
There's a few companies. So the big company is Warlord. Another
Warlord. Okay, I
company
think I've heard of that one.
is Perry Miniatures. There's I mean, if you wanted to do it dirt cheap, there's a company called Armies in Plastic that they do almost like the little green army men, but for like any war you wanted.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. And a lot of people kind of like make their own rule sets as well. But that's like, those are some of my hobbies. I don't know if this is a hobby per se, but like I also am into like and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I like cigars.
Well,
You
I
know,
mean, one of the biggest Catholic podcasts around has his own cigar bar, so
exactly. Yeah. Pints with Aquinas.
yeah, yeah. They
Yeah.
just did like a cigar party thing that would look pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't I think he's is he still in Ohio or did he move
No,
to
he
Texas?
moved out. He's in Florida, I think now.
I think he's been in like 3 or 4 states.
Well, he used to be in Australia
Well,
too, so
yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, it's kind of like one of those like Catholic gentleman things to do. Um,
I don't think there's anything wrong with cigars.
oh
I wouldn't
yeah,
necessarily do it in front of my kids or anything, but
no, yeah, no, I don't smoke in the house or in front of my kid. But um, I think it's a nice social activity to do for sure.
yeah, and
Uh,
there was a
what's that?
really cool short video they just did on smoking cigars on Matt Fred's channel.
Okay,
It was him, and I don't know if you know who Kyle Whittington is.
I've heard the name.
He's
Uh,
the guy that runs him and Drew, they run the Catholic Creators Conference in Steubenville each
oh,
year.
okay, okay.
But yeah, they sat down at the cigar bar for like some promo they were doing, and then they
Hmm,
had like a bunch of Catholic content creators come out and
cool.
kind of christen the whole thing, I guess.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, I mean, uh, yeah, I mean,
No, I think
um,
cigars are a hobby. I think
oh
they
yeah,
are.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
if I could have a podcast like Matt Brad in the future where I could have cigars going during the podcast, I
Sure.
probably would. I probably would
Oh,
do that at
I
least
mean,
once in a while.
one day I hope to be invited on Pints of Aquinas because I think he and I could talk about cigars and all the stuff that we're talking about here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it would be a lot of fun.
Or
Yeah.
maybe the future studio of Crash Cannon when this goes somewhere.
Oh,
No, I'm
absolutely.
just kidding.
No, I think you and no, I took a look at some of your what's it called? Your analytics, right?
Analytics, yeah.
And it seems that you're growing, you know?
Oh, it is. It is
Yeah,
growing.
that's great.
A lot faster than my old channel. I had a monetized gaming content creator channel at one
Really?
point. Yeah, yeah, we did that for a
Okay.
long time. And so I just decided, all right, I'm doing my own thing in the Catholic space and started my
Mm-hmm.
own podcast over here. And it's been very fun. I mean, people are very open to coming on podcasts, and I can't say anything bad about anybody who's come on here so far. It's been
Yeah.
great.
The Catholic space is real. It's amazing how huge it is, but how close knit it is. I I mean, because you're mentioning, I mean, some of the names that you're mentioning, they're kind of, but I think everyone knows Matt Fradd, everyone knows Ascension Press, everyone knows Bishop Barron, and they all know each other, and they all hang out, and everyone here is great, you know. I mean, I don't have a bad thing to say about any of the people, uh, who watch my videos or who have their own like I said, anytime I see another YouTuber reviewing books in the Christian space, I'm like, hey, this is great, you know. I don't send out a cease and
Cease
desist
and
order,
desist. You're
but
like, I have this is my business. No, I'm just
no. No, the more the merrier, this is
We'll
the
probably find a lot more obscure books as like different people put their stuff online, because
definitely,
there's stuff
yeah.
out there that probably nobody's ever, like the breviary group I'm in. I constantly see
Hmm.
people putting books out there on
Yeah.
the, like, either for sale, and it's like way out of my price range. I'm like, but could you just film a video on it before you sell it, please?
Hmm.
Please just
Yeah.
show me what this is, because I don't know what this is.
You got to be careful though, because a lot of these people are scammers completely.
Yeah, you do see that. Like, you have to
Yeah.
post like, this was picture was taken on this date with this
Yep.
person's name. That way you can identify. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Hmm.
How many scammers are out there? It's like, that's just
Yeah.
sad, because like
Hmm.
we're all just looking for the same stuff, obscure Catholic books out there,
Hmm.
and it'd be nice if we could trust people in
Yeah,
those
especially
communities,
in the like in the Christian, like they're taking advantage of like vulnerable people.
right?
Yeah, so that's never a good thing. But
Probably the weirdest thing that ever happened to me on a Facebook Marketplace deal was, I bought a set of Liturgy of the Hours, and then I got a tracking number, and the tracking number was already used. It was like it
oh
had already been
man,
delivered somewhere, and I was like, ah. So I reached out to Facebook, and they canceled the order and gave me
hmm,
my refund.
good.
And then like 2 months later, a set of Liturgy of the Hours just showed up on my porch. I was
Whoa,
like, how did this even happen?
wow,
So I'm not sure where it came from, who it was supposed to be from, what, I don't even know what happened. But
that's bizarre.
and it wasn't even like, it was not from the Facebook seller either. So I don't know how it, like, it was like some guardian angel out there sent a
Yeah,
set to me for no reason. So whatever.
God bless.
It was just wild. So
That is nuts.
yeah, and by that time I had bought another set. So I was like, okay, God wants me to gift this to a person in need. So I gave it to
Sure.
somebody who's currently studying for the diaconate.
Oh, God bless that person. Yeah. Good luck to
Yeah.
them.
So anyway, do you have any other questions for me, or anything you want to talk about before we?
If you have any other questions, fire away. But, I think this has
Oh,
been
how
yeah,
did you like the Byzantine rite that you used to altar serve at, right?
yeah, yeah. So, the Byzantine Rite, for those who are not familiar, is a set of Catholics. They are in full communion with Rome, um, who have basically tr transitioned from the Eastern Orthodox Church. And so theologically, I would say like 99% theologically, they are Orthodox, and
Mm-hmm.
liturgically, they are 99 to 100% Eastern Orthodox. That if you closed your eyes, uh, you would not be able to tell the difference between the two. And if you
Except for they
opened your
mentioned
eyes,
the Pope and the canon of the Mass.
the Pope, right? And then you open your eyes and you see the flag of the Holy See,
Yeah.
right? So, um, but so and I grew up Roman Catholic.
Hmm.
I was always a Western Christian, always a Western Catholic. But then I discovered through, I suppose it was maybe YouTube or maybe someone in college, I can't remember what, that these different rites existed. And I thought, wow. And so there was one about 15 minutes away from my childhood home, and I went on the Sunday after Pentecost, and I walk in, and the liturgical color for Pentecost is green, for the life of the church, right?
Right.
So life and vitality is green rather than the flame of the church, which is red. And for lack of a better term, the smells and the bells really kind of like took me away. And the priest there
Is
was
this what we're
yeah.
talking about right
So
here?
yeah, so the so on the right there is the Holy Spirit. That's in northern New Jersey, and the priest presiding, God rest his soul, is Father Jody Barron, and there I am on the left holding the Rapidian, which is the liturgical fan. Now it's funny enough. a Western Catholic would say, oh, that's a liturgical abuse, because technically I should not have been wearing that stole. That's for a subdeacon. But there is a place in the Eastern Church wherever local custom permits. And that, I guess, for whatever reason, Holy Spirit in Mahwah, New Jersey, we had the stole. But yeah, and so that uh I love the Byzantine spirituality. I pray the Jesus prayer. I think it's amazing.
So
I
do you have
have
a
an
prayer rope?
I have several prayer ropes.
Do you? Oh,
I'm
cool.
not wearing one right now, but
Yeah.
I used to wear one constantly. And I have an icon corner in my. Thank you for sharing that, Chris. I have an icon corner. I have. Ooh, I don't know how many um, icons. Maybe like 15 or 20
Now,
icons.
when you say icons, do you specifically mean like the Greek icons, or do you mean like, yeah? Okay.
Eastern style icons, yes. So, and what makes an icon is not necessarily the drawing of the saint, but the actual inscription. And so
Oh,
in
okay.
order,
Okay.
yeah, so and they usually have the plain face, like,
Yeah.
you know, uh
Yeah. Yeah.
and it usually looks a little bit more mosaic and flat, right?
Yeah.
That's typically the stuff, and that is what makes an icon an icon. But technically, unless if the name of the saint is not there, it is not canonically an icon.
Hmm.
And so, and I fell in love with this whole idea of theosis, which is, which is the Pope John Paul II brought this idea more toward the Western Church, which is the divinization, not to be confused with divination, which is trying to contact gods or become a god, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's to become spiritually pure, right? And I also fell in love with the idea of just falling in repentance. This whole idea of the parable of the publican and the Pharisee is central to Eastern spirituality and theology of it. You're better off praying to God and offering yourself to God in a genuine way than kind of being like a Pharisee, going through the motions. It's better
Yeah.
to,
Literally a Pharisee, right?
yeah, beat your chest and say, God be merciful to me, a sinner, God be merciful to me. And it's better to be in that way than it is to be the ivory tower character, right? And yeah, I absolutely love the Byzantine Rite. I am I am canonically Roman. I don't think I would ever change rites. It would not change anything except my children would be baptized in the Byzantine Rite. But yeah, I fell in love with Byzantine spirituality, kind of just out of more like curiosity than anything. And the only thing I'll say is that it's really hard to find a good breviary. There is no such thing as like the breviary for the Byzantine Catholic. There is the
Like, period?
horologian. Pardon me?
Oh, yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, there's the
There's really isn't.
horologian,
Yeah. Yeah.
but this idea of like, oh yeah, the 4-week Psalter or the 1-week Psalter or the whatever. Well, there are like the kathismas, but this is
I've
not
seen a
designed.
few in the breviary group, but they're like low production numbers. You have to find the right person to buy them from.
Yeah, the best like iteration of a 1-volume breviary that's made in any Eastern circle at all is the Anthologian by
I was gonna say
Saint.
I've seen that one come up a few
I've
times.
reviewed it, and a lot of people are saying, I get comments every once in a while saying, "Oh, all the things you don't like about the first edition were fixed in the third edition." So maybe one day I'll take a look at the third edition, but um,
Is that something you bought yourself and you've
I
kept?
not only bought the first edition myself. If you look at the first page of the Anthologian, my name, Christian Anthony Gonzalez, is one of the patrons of the project.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
yeah, needless to say, I did buy it with my own money. It's by Saint Ignatius Orthodox Press, not to be confused with
Yeah.
Saint Ignatius Press. But
Right.
and uh, this is something that I need to tread carefully with, because uh, I don't want to make a profile or a caricature, but when it comes to many of the Orthodox commenters, they fall into this trap of thinking that two words, become Orthodox exclamation point, is good evangelization, and that's somehow
No,
going to make
it's
me
not.
drop my mug, and it's going to shatter and be like, oh my
Oh my
God,
gosh.
I should have been Orthodox. Like, and 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 a lot of people, and Catholics are guilty of this too. You know,
Yeah, like, come home to Rome.
come, yeah, cross the Tiber, right?
Cross the tie.
And
Yeah.
also they think that disparaging my faith will somehow make me think, oh yeah, you guys are right.
Yeah, yeah, sure,
Um,
sure.
and like I said, many Catholics are guilty of that too. But but there are many, if not the vast majority of Orthodox Christians that I've come across, both in real life and on the internet, are lovely people. And I want to point out that the Catholic Church holds as a truth that their sacraments are valid, that they are part of the apostolic faith, that their priesthood, their sacraments, their Eucharist is all valid, right? So this is very much a like, we are very, at least from the Catholic perspective, the Orthodox might have a different view, and I can't speak on behalf of the Orthodox view, but we are very much in the same church, just the unfortunate case of the schism. And I want to
Yeah.
point out that there are saints who are on the wrong side
Of
of
the
the
schism.
schism, like Saint Vincent Ferrer, who at at the wrong time was supporting the Avignon papacy rather than the Roman papacy,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
vice versa, right? Um,
That
so
was a matter of geography more than it
it
was
was
out of.
very much a matter of geography and language and
Yeah.
politics, and yeah, and
I just
so
read about him recently in my Butler's Lives of the Saints. That's why I was.
yeah.
It's funny that you bring that up.
Yeah, Saint Vincent Saint Vincent Ferrer is very much like a top favorite saint of mine. Um, I actually have a video where so he only spoke the language of Catalan, which is a language that's spoken in the eastern coast of Spain.
Yeah.
And my family, at least half of it, well, not half, but like maybe like a quarter of it speaks Catalan. And
Really?
yeah, and I speak much better Catalan now than I did when I uploaded the video. Some of my pronunciations are really bad, but he was a monolingual Catalan speaker, and he had the kind of like the idea of the ability of speaking in tongues the way that the
That the
apostles
early
at
church
Pentecost
understood
did.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, not this like gibberish kind of thing, right? So
Not the Pentecostal
and
understanding.
if we don't, the church doesn't really have a stance on the new age version of speaking in tongues, except make sure there's a proper interpretation of it. But he had the ability to preach to people in languages unbeknownst to him. And so
Yeah,
I
that was
like
a really
Saint.
cool one to read about.
Yeah, he was, and apparently he would preach for like hours and hours on end, and people were captivated by it yet. So um but anyway, so my point with the Orthodox, and a lot of people comment asking, why do you both Catholic and Orthodox alike, why do you review Orthodox books if you're not Orthodox? And the answer is kind of twofold. One of them is all these Byzantine Catholics believe the same thing that the Orthodox Church believes,
For the most
and
part.
I would say up to like 95%, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be some differences. Thank you for making that clarification. And the other aspect of that is they have, according to the eyes of the Catholic Church, they have valid sacraments, right? They have apostolic succession. The body and blood of Christ become truly present in their Eucharist, right? So I feel like I owe it to the Orthodox Church and the Catholic faithful alike to kind of, and there's a level of danger to ecumenical or ecumenism,
Oh, there
but
is absolutely.
but I feel like I want to play my safe ecumenical role
Yeah,
through my
yeah.
channel. Hmm.
So let's just to end this show,
Yeah.
I'm gonna show you the most heretical thing I've ever found on Amazon.
Okay.
Tell
Let's
me what
see
you
it.
think of this.
The Holy Spirit Board by Holy Spirit Games. Christian religious talking. Ooh.
Can you believe this exists?
Ah.
Like
Okay.
look at this.
Communicate
Like
directly with Jesus Christ. Okay,
I just
well,
I can't believe this exists.
it's obviously a parody.
Yeah, yeah, obviously, yeah.
And I'm not one to say, Jimmy Akin says, it's always aliens, it's always demons. To be weary of that.
Yeah.
Um, but do not buy this.
Under any
You, you
circumstances.
know, uh, the best thing that can happen to you is nothing, except
Right.
you might be in mortal sin. The worst is
Oh my
that you
gosh.
contact an unclean
Something?
spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh. I remember when this first showed up, it was like on a meme page. It was like the devil's really working hard today. And they posted this up and it's like, no one's gonna buy
yeah,
this. It's
he
like, but
is.
there's
Yeah,
75 ratings.
at least 75 people bought it. Okay,
Yeah.
so word to the audience. I'm about to directly contact Jesus, right? In the name of the Father, and the name of the Son, and the
Son.
Holy Spirit,
There you go.
right? So, uh, obviously, I don't think either of our audiences and the middle part of the Venn diagram that people watch both of us
Yeah.
um,
I would hope nobody
would
buys
buy
this,
this, but
period.
yeah, that is blasphemous, and it's very sad. I mean, just the fact that uh, Christianity has become like
Yeah.
a
You're
a
right though. The people
joke.
buying this. Yeah. There you go. Somebody's like good collection of their Ouija boards. Okay, so the people buying this are not. Look at this. Okay, this person probably did not buy this. I challenge
No,
to read the four gospel chapters before purchasing this.
yeah,
Yeah, clearly.
I
Okay,
like
well,
to,
that
yeah,
raises my feelings on this a little better because somebody's like, no, obviously this is a
don't
joke.
buy this.
Don't buy
Yeah.
it. Anyway, I wanted to end on that
Okay.
'cause I was like, I've never shared this on the podcast, but I came across it and I was like, this is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah. I, yeah. I mean,
I don't even know
it's
what to say to
yeah.
it. It's like
Well, yeah, that's a great
on a
bombshell
brighter
to
note,
on a brighter note. It is the
on a
Easter
brighter note, go
season.
check out. It is, yeah. No, I was gonna say on a brighter note, go check out the reviews on his channel, which are
Oh,
not going to
thank you.
be this whatever it is. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
just
thank you
can't
so
believe that
much again.
exists.
Thank you so much
The Christian's like,
for
I don't know
having
what I'm
me.
doing on this channel anymore. No, I'm just kidding.
No,
Because I
no,
showed you
no.
the Ouija board. Oh god.
No, but in all
Oh man.
seriousness, thank you so much for having me. I love the content creator space. I love the Catholic content creator space, and
There's a really
I,
cool Discord channel you could check out then later on. I could send it
I,
to you.
I will. Please do send it to me. And
Like Mr. Lepanto's in there and Hallelujah's in there and a bunch of other cool
great,
people.
yeah,
So
awesome.
anyway,
I will, I will definitely check it out. And yeah, thank you so much. Happy Easter, and let's pray for the conclave that's coming up, I guess in
absolutely.
May. We're without a Holy Father at the moment, and
Yeah.
um, yeah, Pope Francis was compassionate and humble, and we need a strong Pope, as always, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And let's pray for that, right? So
We'll see if the
definitely.
StreamYard will actually let us or do you want to just pray offline or what are you saying
Oh,
here?
I was just going to say I encourage the prayer, but
Okay,
you
okay,
know,
okay.
um, quick prayer there, right there, done, right?
Agreed, agreed, agreed.
But yeah, thank you again for having me, and keep up the great work. It was so much fun having just a naturally flowing conversation, you know.
Absolutely. And we've gone, this is almost my longest one. So
Oh my gosh,
congratulations to you.
yeah,
We're
well,
almost
thank
there.
you. Yeah. Try and beat
But
the record, next guest.
yeah,
But no,
but the
no.
longest podcast I ever did was like 5 hours, and there was
Whoa.
nothing of value at the end of that. I'll be honest. It was like
Wow.
4.5 hours in, and it's like, what are we even talking about?
Hmm.
So I'm not going to do that ever again. But 2 hours is
Yeah.
about as
Two
much as I
hours
want
is
to.
a good length.
Yeah, yeah.
That's about the length that most podcasts these days are. So,
So if you're
yeah.
tuning in and you're subscribed to me and not Christian, go subscribe to Convinced Catholicism. Very easy to find. Probably the largest channel with that name on the YouTube,
Hmm.
I would imagine. I don't think
Yeah.
there's any channels that come close with that same name. So
Hmm.
easy to find.
And if you're not
But as
subscribed to
always,
Crash Canon, subscribe to Crash
did
Canon.
you almost say Cash Cannon?
I almost did,
That's a
but
completely different channel. We shoot cash out of cannons.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh man, I need to make a shirt. Crash Cannon, not Cash Cannon. Anyways,
Yeah.
um, on that note though, I'm gonna roll the outro and thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye guys.
Bye-bye.